Hello, this is David at Everything Economics, and today we're going to talk about the circular flow model. This is a foundational model for economics on how the economy works, how money and other resources flow through the entire economy, flow through the system, so to speak. So let's go ahead and get started. This is the circular flow model. And so as you can tell, it can look a little bit complicated, but it's actually rather simple. So let me get my pen out and we'll go ahead and go through this. So first of all, we're going to start off with households. Households includes individuals such as yourself who might be listening to this video. It includes families, includes basically your household. Um, and in a household, what you usually end up doing is, of course, you sell your labor. In other words, you go look for a job, and in exchange for looking for a job, you get wages. So, for example, if I'm in a household, I'm going to um, sell my labor to businesses, and it's going to go this way. And businesses in exchange provide me with a wage. Okay, and this could be also not just selling your labor, it could also be providing land or uh, space for renting. It could be other things besides just providing your labor. It could be entrepreneurial ability, which means management talent. So, but basically, the household is selling their services, their time, their abilities, their um, assets to businesses, and then in return, businesses pay wages or rent or interest or profits. And now, as for businesses, businesses we know create goods and services. And so businesses are going to create goods and services, which is going to be their output. And their output is sometimes referred to as production. Not sure why this particular model shows output, but a lot of times you will see production. And so businesses produce goods and services, and then households buy those goods and services. And they use that would be your consumer expenditures. So you go to Walmart, you buy groceries, you buy clothes or whatever, and you give them money. And so that money goes back to the business and towards their profits. Also, households tend to save money. Um, I know Americans aren't famous for savings, but if you have money that you put into a savings account or a CD, or even if you invested in, say, the stock market, or you purchase some kind of bond, such as a U.S. Treasury, or maybe not a U.S. Treasury, but you purchase um, corporate bonds or an ETF or a mutual fund, that money goes into the financial sector, the banking sector. And in exchange, the banking sector takes that money and invests it into businesses. And it could be invested through providing loans to businesses or even purchasing business stock or, in other words, equity. So that is something. And then in exchange, the business would pay interest on the debt, for example, loan interest or interest on the bonds or dividends on the stock. Now, two other factors that, or two other things that are in the circular flow model is government. And government, of course, does government spending, which they buy goods and services. So government buys For example, in the military, they might buy military aircraft, um, or they spend money on hiring uh, employees for different government agencies. And to do all of that, they raise taxes. And taxes could be taxed on both households as well as businesses. And then another thing to consider is trade. Whatever we don't consume in the United States, we usually export it. And then, of course, we also take in imports. And so trade is also where goods, services, money can flow through. Okay, so this is the basic circular flow model. Now let's go over a couple of questions. Let's see, we have question 1. It says, which of the following comprises the two key groups of participants in the circular flow of income? And our choices are A, output, which is also known as production, and factor markets. B, government and the financial sector. C, households and businesses. Businesses is also known as firms. And D, buyers and sellers. Well, let's look at the first one, letter A. Letter A says output and factor market. So that would be up here, output as well as factors. Now it's looking for participants, and participants, this usually implies individuals or entities. And so factors of production, for example, talks about land, it talks about labor and materials. Output is your products or your services. So that's not going to be it. So we can cross out A. B, government and the financial sector. Well, it is true that government is a major participant, but it is not the key participant. It does provide services, it does purchase goods and services, but it would not be considered the major key group. Letter C, households and businesses. Well, households are individuals, and every household, regardless of who you are, participates, and as well as every business. And again, that's participating through either selling your labor or making purchases, or businesses creating new products or services. So yes, households and businesses are the two key groups in the circular flow model. And the last one answer was buyers and sellers. Well, buyers and sellers could be anybody. It could be people in trade. It could be in government. So no, that would not be correct. All right, so households and businesses are the key participants in the circular flow of income. All right, let's go to the next question. Question 2, it says, in which markets are factors of production such as labor, capital, natural resources, and entrepreneurial ability traded? And our answers are A, in output or product markets, B, in essential markets, C, in factor markets, or D, in competitive markets. And so letter A, it's asking about, or it suggests output markets. Well, if we look at our circular flow model, output is where you're selling where a business is selling goods and services. And so that does not include labor, capital, or entrepreneurial ability. So that one's out. Essential markets is not even on here, so that would be out. Factor markets, factors of production, that is where households sell their labor to businesses, and businesses purchase that labor by providing wages. And of course, households also can provide natural resources, it can provide capital, managerial ability, or entrepreneurial ability. So, yes, uh, it would be the factor markets. That would be where labor is sold, capital is sold, entrepreneurial ability is sold. D, competitive markets. Again, that's not even on the circular flow diagram, so we can cross that out. All right, well, that is it for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Please send a like, um, subscribe, and again, there will be weekly videos out. So keep looking out for new videos here in the future. All right, thank you.